tell you something.
Anything you want.
Well, so I cleared 90 days of recovery.
Awesome.
I did, and I struggled. I had my first using dream that night. The night of 90 days was my first using dream.
Tell us about it.
I had gratitude that day. I went up to Minneapolis, made amends with the city. I went and saw the man that brought me into recovery on my 11th hour. He was the one hand I would grab. I wasn't ready to go, but I mean, I went. In April of 2018, that's when my journey started. And so, like, I saw him, then I got emotional. It was an emotional day. It was just, it was a tough day. Anyway, so I hit 90 days, and I don't know how I got to it. I don't know how I didn't have cravings. I had gotten sober in the past, and something changed. Something was awoken inside of me. Something had completely shifted inside of me on a soul level. I believe that fully, on a soul level. I was a guy, I never got past the 4-step. I never finished the 4-step. I remember my 4-step first thing I wrote down in my sponsor was God, resentment. I had a lot of work to do, apparently. But something had changed in me inherently. And I had to roll back the reels and try to figure out what the hell made me different this time. Not having a sponsor, not having, at least not believing I have an understanding of what a spiritual awakening is. I gave up on that aspect at that point. But something took me over and something changed me on March 1st when I went in. The 29th, leap year of 2020, February 29th, was a huge shift for me, you know. That was my last drink, my Bacardi Coke. And the next day I went in and said, I did it! I stomped my feet. And something had changed at that point. And within 2 weeks, they shut down recovery centers. And, you know, where we had our recovery meetings was no longer available. And I was cut loose, no sponsor, no program. And I didn't know how I was going to stay sober. And I jumped on Facebook and started sharing my truth. And I'll tell you this much, like, I really got real with myself. And I think I cried for the first time I've ever really truly cried that day. I took a shower and I was like, I didn't know how I was going to get there. At like 2 weeks in, when they shut everything down, COVID-19 running around, no spleen with me, worried about my parents, worried about everything. I remember like seeing a news cycle and this news thing that said it's coming here to the States now. And I remember like on my way to recovery meeting in that first like shortly into March, that first week of March, and I swore, I was like, that's it, I'm dead, you're dead, Dad's dead. I was yelling at my mom. I'm like, we're all dead. What's the point? I was like freaking out, like seriously, truly. And I held back from what just now articulating how I felt, like for real. I was completely pissed off. I was completely broken. I thought, now I'm here. I go. I'm really ready to go all in again. I'm getting sober again, and now this. I'm done. Oh, we're dead. Now this is what's going to kill me. Not a needle in my arm. This is going to kill me. You know. And I struggled, and I went to that meeting that day, and I didn't know how to do it. And now imagine going from that to within the next week shutting down those recovery centers and having no list, no phone list, no contacts, no support, no nothing. And a guy that had a sponsor who was struggling himself, you know, and couldn't be a help to me. And you know, he's at a sober living house for guys, and they shut that down because of COVID-19, so they couldn't interact. You know, yeah, could I call him? Yeah. Did I call him? No. Man, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I knew as an empath, like I knew recovery rooms were bad for me because I didn't understand myself. I knew that. And I knew I had whatever it was, maybe born with cerebral palsy and like having a cord wrapped around my neck and like thinking, well, I'm the guy that dove into the shallow end of the pool and bumped his head, traumatic brain injury, came up, never had a piano lesson, now the guy could play Mozart. Maybe something happened in my neck that day with that umbilical cord and it made me psychic or it made me sensitive, you know? Because I used to see spirits as a kid like so many children do, and then they grow out of it. No, everything's taboo. We don't put our arms around those kids. We don't identify that in our culture today. So we block those gifts. I fully believe that the awakening I had because of my psychic gifts and because I would get super uncomfortable about 7 to 10 days into recovery and start sharing that stuff and feeling somebody else's emotions, and then I'd share this, and that's everything the program went against. That I'm unique, that I'm, hey, there's an extra set of rules govern me. I fully believe this after I realized this for real, and that we're all gifted. We're just blocked. If you don't believe you're psychic, if you don't believe you have that intuition is more speaking to you more than just a thought in your head, that it's actually coming from a spirit guide, you're blocked to it. You're going to continue to be blocked to it. By believing it's not possible makes it not possible. It is completely that way. And I think, when they shut those meetings down, that was the right time for Jeremy to get sober, because inherently, I would have normally stood in judgment of everyone else, gotten small, felt small, and then ended up smoking pot again, and that would end up with a needle in my arm because I would release my addictions all over again. So I had to get out of those meetings at that point in time. And I went on a spiritual journey at that point in time. I called an intuitive medium friend of mine and said, help me understand myself, I need help. I figured if I could figure out my sensitivity, my enhanced empathic feelings towards people, maybe they could help me. And they taught me protections that day. At the very first meeting I met with this person, she taught me on how to visualize protections around myself. And for the first time in my recovery, I was able to stand in my own feelings and know that I couldn't get sad just by walking in a room. How many of us don't even go in recovery centers because the elephant's not even in the room? The elephant won't even go in the door. We can't deal with it. We go back out. So many people in addiction that are empaths, strong empaths, it goes hand in hand. And why is that? Why is it when we become spiritually awakened, we stop speaking up? How many people are in recovery rooms that don't talk about how connected to spirit they actually are? On what level? Because if you don't know it, you speak about it. If you know it, you say nothing. Because spirit is inherently a personal thing. And with that, what you perceive is very personal. That's where true power lies. When we go deep within ourselves, I believe that's what I did, and that's what awoke in me that day. And I was in the shower and I cried. I said, look, if there is such a thing as God, I've given you a closed circuit TV camera to bear witness to me, because I'm going to unload right now. And I started crying and I started sobbing. I didn't know what was coming from the shower head, what was coming out of my head. And I remember like on the bottom of the shower and just like crying and and like holding my little cerebral palsy legs and crying and forgiving myself for ever thinking that these crooked legs would keep me, for just feeling bad that I was born with crooked legs, that I was picked on, and that people that excuse me, that my parents didn't understand me because I told them I saw spirits, and they said, no, you're just seeing ghosts, go back to bed. Traumatized at a young age, and doctors after an entire day of tests at the Children's Hospital in Milwaukee, and at the end of the day said, you'll never be normal, you'll never run without, you'll never be able to keep up, you'll never be able to play sports, And then I had OCD right after that encounter. Like, boom. I mean, could you kick the kid more? And I just cried, and I just forgave myself. I said, it's okay that they said that's who you were. It's okay you tore 7 teeth out of your mouth in a psychosis on methamphetamine and on heroin. And that's okay. That's everything that I'd done was okay, and it's okay, and I forgive you, Jeremy, and I forgave myself. First step didn't have to do with a sponsor. It had to do with me and Spirit Bearer Witness. Just, I didn't even factor it in. I didn't expect nothing. And as I'm crying and I'm hugging my legs and I'm just weeping and letting it out, forgiving myself, forever feeling sorry for myself, ever thinking I couldn't do anything, ever thinking that it mattered. It doesn't matter. It's just stuff that's happened to me. The man that molested me at 7, just stuff. And as I started crying, then I felt this amazing feeling, and I started feeling pride in my legs, pride in my crooked legs. I was kissing my arms and kissing myself, and I'm just loving myself and hugging and holding myself and rubbing my head, loving, holding, embracing myself with love. And then I felt pride. I felt pride in my legs. I felt pride in my uniqueness and all my flaws, and that they were mine. And as I felt that, I felt this power come into me. Like I was proud and I was stronger, and it was a physical feeling and a feeling that activated every cell in my body with something more powerful than myself. And I stood up from that shower, the bottom of that shower, and I had pride. I had self-love in that moment. And I pictured myself with wings, dude, like for real. Like I pictured myself healed and like a hybrid. Excuse me. Like I could take on the world. Like I'm okay now. Like that crap that happened is okay. The guy that molested me, hey, that's okay. It doesn't bother me anymore. Nothing bothered me. The doctors didn't bother me. My parents not believing me when I was a child didn't bother me. Nothing bothered me. And all those resentments that I would have had to write down every little one, every pack of bubble gum I stole, when I was a child. No, it doesn't matter. That was stuff. Didn't matter. What mattered to me was what I thought about myself. Period. That's it. That's all it took. That was the first thing I recognized of why I wasn't having cravings in recovery. Early recovery. With a global pandemic, when stuff would come at me left and right, when addicts would call me up and say, you want to go use? And I would